SPEAR2Lead, it has a great mission and vision. And I'm glad we have platforms out there to help accelerate people moving forward and finding their passions and figure out how to apply that to life. So thank you for having us. I love healthcare, so it's nice. When she was speaking about med reconciliation and lab orders, that's key, because it's great to be a nurse, but that technology behind it, putting it in, and then the quickness around it makes a difference in a patient. So everybody has a key component to patient care. So thank you for all that you do, Mariama. And my name is Alexandra. I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, and I was initially a criminal justice and biology major. Bio, I realized, was not my thing after the first semester because it confined me to too many classes that led me to be so keyed into only one or two things. Like I could only take sciences and wasn't able to really go outside the realm that I wanted to. So I changed to criminal justice and did a criminal justice pre-nursing major, which allowed me to have random classes incorporated. In one of those classes, I took a public health course with Dr. Howard, and someone come in and explain how, a nurse practitioner come in and explain how she lowered the infant mortality rate in Santa Clara, California. At the time, I always saw nurses as how we view them on TV, kind of like at the bedside, emergency room, the typical stereotypical roles. So after seeing what she did, and she explained how much she changed, whether it was legislation or different initiatives to help people get prenatal care, I was like, wow, nurses could work beyond the bedside and do legislative work as well. So my senior year, first semester, I realized I wanted to be a nurse. My mom said I spent all that money in Maryland, so I hope you graduate. So I graduated from Maryland, but then I went straight to nursing school, and I've loved every minute of nursing school since. I started out as a cardiac telemetry nurse, med-surg nurse, which basically means that we're taking care of patients who have a wide range of issues, and we are mainly watching their heart to make sure they're okay. So I did that for about 12 months, and I was also taking care of cardiac catheterization patients, which are patients who have heart attacks or different things going on, whether it's circulation issues, and we have to open up the arteries to make sure blood flows through. So I was able to start that position this past March. So within this year and a half, I've really been able to be on a trajectory where I'm blessed and humbled, and I'm learning so much every day. And through it all, my mission is always self-care is not selfish, because in all of our professions, whether it is a healthcare profession, whatever we do, it's easy to put other people in front of us and not take care of who you are. So my goal throughout nursing, especially as I'm on this new orientation and it's a lot of pressure to get things right, I still maintain that self-care is not selfish, and I keep that at the forefront of my blog and my website to really show that it's not just the spas and the meditation, trying to figure out your purpose within life so you live up to that. So thank you guys for having me.
So excited, so excited. And you both are doing such wonderful things. I was listening and I was like, okay, I understand some of that. Then you lost me, but I know it's important. So I'm happy to know that you know what you're doing and that you are continuing to grow in your professions. So, you know, I always say that you cannot have all sunshine. There has to be some rain. With that being said, I want to know a little bit about what is your favorite part of your job, and then what do you consider to be something that's challenging or an area for improvement? Ms. Mariama, we're going to start with you.
Okay. So I would say definitely my favorite part in terms of working in health IT is the flexibility. Definitely being able to work from home and being able to work at the convenience of my own computer. I'm able to basically get all that I need to get done as I would do while I'm in the office. And when it comes to the flexibility in terms of working from home, I don't have to deal with rush hour traffic. I don't have to deal with spending so much money on laundry and trying to find out what I'm going to wear each day of work because I have to dress business casually. And also I'm saving money on gas, I'm saving money on time, not having to go through that whole rush hour traffic of getting to work. Now with Holy Cross Hospital being in Silver Spring and me moving back to Silver Spring, my commute is only like 5 to 10 minutes. But it's kind of nice being able to work from home and not have to drive in adverse weather conditions, because while the weather conditions right now aren't so much of a problem, it will become more of an issue when it comes to like raining conditions and storms, and of course like our harsh winters here in Maryland. So I would say the convenience of working from home. Also, when it comes to sick days, I'm able to take a sick day at any time. Like if I take a sick day, like, and it's like the day right before I have to work, it's not so much of a big negative impact as opposed to another field. So I do work with some nurses, and they've told me that when it comes to them having to call out from work, it affects their whole entire unit. And with working in health IT, I don't have to deal with any issues like that. And I'm one of those people that kind of likes worrying about other people in terms of my actions. So I want to make sure that my actions have a positive effect on others. So in terms of working in health IT, I don't have to deal with the whole negatively affecting the whole entire like department when it comes to me calling off on a sick day. And also proper work-life and balance. As Alex said, self-care isn't selfish, and I think it's important to have a proper work and life balance. And I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So weekends I'm free, evenings I'm free, and I'm pretty much, exercising, also working on my other population health projects, also cooking. For those who are African on the line, like African cooking takes forever. So I'm having time to do that, in the evenings, and also doing meditation exercises and catching up on like Netflix shows and reading and things like that. So I would say those are the things that I like. Also the work diversity, just pretty much being able to work in the field of health IT. I'm able to work with people from all types of disciplines, clinical disciplines, financial disciplines, IT disciplines, project management disciplines, as well as, what else did I mention? Finance disciplines, marketing disciplines. So you're able to work with various disciplines in order to achieve the common goal of improving positive patient outcomes. So that's what I really like about working in health IT. In terms of what I don't like, as my least favorite, I would say in working in health IT, you don't have a huge hands-on impact in regards to patient care. So, with Alexandra being a nurse, she has a huge impact in order to improve patient outcomes and reduce hospital readmissions and things like that. But in working in the behind the scenes of health IT, you're most so focused on the whole technology IT aspect of the operations of the hospital. So you don't really have a huge impact when it comes to improving patients' lives and saving their lives as well. So, and I'm a person that likes to have an impact when it comes to anything that I do. I want to make sure that I'm worthy. I want to make sure that I'm of value to any organization that I work for. So just, working behind the scenes, you don't really have as much as a huge impact when it comes to patient care, as opposed to like clinical people like Alexandra and doctors and nurse practitioners and things like that. And I would also say another thing, my least favorite thing about working in health IT is also it's still relatively new. If you really think about it, the World Wide Web didn't become so widely used until the early 1990s. So health IT is still relatively new, and with fields that have longevity, such as nursing, biology, finance, they're more tenured. So they have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, especially from an evidence-based perspective. But with health IT, it's still relatively new. And it's not to say that there's not much growth and opportunity. There is definitely a lot of growth and opportunity in health IT when it comes to telemedicine services, remote patient monitoring systems, patient portals, and things like that. Especially now that we're in the middle of a pandemic, there's a lot of opportunity. But I would say the field is not as tenured as other fields that have been existing for forever. So those are my favorites and my least favorites in regards to working in health IT.
Alexandra?
My favorite thing about being a nurse is really coming in contact with so many different people who I never expected to, and learning from them and hearing different stories. Currently in my new role, I'm able to actually see people go from close to death to bringing them back to being alive again, which is a very, it's a very scary thing at times, but I'm learning throughout the job that I'm not God, and his will always trumps what we can do. We can only help, but it's nice to be able to be there and really help somebody and save that person who's an integral part of somebody's family. So I really like having the impact and spending time with patients, learning their stories, seeing where they're coming from, meeting different personalities, because people that you come in contact with, they come from all walks of life. So you never know what they're gonna say, do, bring, especially my older patients. They can say the darndest things. So it's nice to learn from them and their experiences. I also like the fact that I work with a diverse age range of nurses. So I'm learning skills that nurses did in the past that we don't necessarily do now, but it's still incorporated in what we do now and have honed our practice. So I really like that I can see things from different perspectives and have a wide network mentorship group throughout it all, because every nurse, no matter how long or short they've been working, has such great information to offer. The last thing that I like is learning how to speak up for myself more and communicate with the different positions, other staff members initially. Although I appear confident, when I first started working, I was timid. Speaking to the doctors, you have in your mind that they know it all and you can't say anything, but it's really a collaborative approach in healthcare. No one person knows everything. As a nurse, I don't know everything. As a doctor, he doesn't know everything. As a lab tech, they don't know everything. So it's key to always keep in mind that the patient is the person who we're taking care of, and that's our mission there. Like, it doesn't matter who's right, who has the most knowledge, the most letters behind their name. It's a collaborative effort, team effort. So I like that I've been able to learn that and become more confident in speaking up, especially when my gut feeling tells me something is wrong with a patient and that I need to do something to help them more. Because initially I'm like, they have more experience than me. Maybe I should let them talk more. But no, I know my patient. I know the skills that I have, and I've learned to be more confident in that and make sure I always keep the patient and their life at the forefront. Something that I don't like, nursing can be very stressful at times. Now that I'm working in the cardiac catheterization lab, you're exposed to a lot of radiation because you're constantly looking at the patient's arteries from X-ray. So in order to protect ourselves, we wear lead vests. And my lead vest is approximately 14 pounds. So wearing that all day throughout cases can get heavy, and it's tiring being on your feet all day. So I say the part of constantly having to be on, there really are no breaks. We do take breaks, and I always advocate for all nurses, especially new nurses, don't skip your break, because that's only going to help you with your patients later. But even though there are breaks, it still gets exhausting. So learning how to maintain that stamina and still always be on, because when that patient is on the table and the doctor is doing the procedure, I have to know the next step, think ahead, figure out what the doctor's going to potentially ask me next. So that gets kind of hard, because sometimes day to day, you can just relax, move through the day, figure out what you're going to do next. In high intense situations where someone's life is on the line, it gets stressful. So that part is something that I'm working on. I still try to keep work-life balance at the forefront and have those breaks throughout the day so I don't get overwhelmed. But it's getting better. And also, I guess, learning how to say no. That was hard for me at the beginning. I cannot work every overtime. I'm not responsible for the hospital staffing. If someone can't work and I'm the only one, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to come in. So learning how to say no, because somehow the spot always gets filled and the work is able to be done. So not feeling guilty to say, hey, no, I can't come in. I just worked 4 shifts back to back and I'm tired today. So that's a hard part, because sometimes with nursing, you really want to be there for your team, the team and collaborative effort, which I love, but you still have to know that you're at your best to be in the hospital and be caring for those patients.
That you both shared some very in-depth and thoughtful and insightful responses. I mean, I can't imagine being in either of your positions. I love people, but don't all stress all the time. It's not for me. And I think I'm technology savvy, but as I'm, setting up this call, I realize that there's some things I still need to learn. So talking about what we need to learn and how we go about our professions, how do you balance your passions, your purpose, and your profession? Let's start with you, Alex.
Learn to balance what I want to do by really prioritizing and seeing where I am in my journey. Initially, after graduating from nursing school back in 2018, I was like, okay, I need to sign up for a grad program. I need to apply to jobs. I need to fix my blog, figure out what I'm going to do next. When I realized at the time, even though I didn't start as a nurse yet, I was really burnt out and needed a break. So my mom was like, relax, like you can figure out what you're going to do next. I was still tutoring children from an old summer camp that I used to work at. So that was a nice side job to have. So I realized that I had to prioritize what was important to me at the time and make a list of what I needed to do. So at that time, my passions were, I'm glad I finished nursing school. I was president of a nursing association, New Jersey Nursing Students Incorporated. So I was still doing things for the presidency up until May. And my grandfather was getting a little bit unwell. So I made it my main mission to take care of him, to make sure he didn't have to go in a nursing home. So that was what's important to me at the time. I figured that when I know I'm at peace, my family is okay, then I can move into other endeavors. That's when I moved into my blog and focusing on that. So I think the key thing is prioritizing what means the most to you. And at the time, it was taking care of myself, my family, and enjoying that I had graduated. The quote that really sticks with me is always enjoy the journey and not just the destination. I feel like throughout everything that we're taught, it's always go to school, get an education, graduate, get married, have kids, get a house, get a dog. It's like, when do we have time to just enjoy being and living? Because we're all great no matter what next degree we have, what accomplishments we're making. It's key to enjoy each moment because life is not promised. And in working as a nurse, I realized how precious life is because I've seen people go from here to not here in a matter of seconds. So the biggest thing, the takeaway, is that prioritizing helps me figure out what I want to do and figure out where I want to be in life. So now I'm really enjoying orientating into my new career and finishing school. So that's the main thing, my priority, learning how to manage both and still maintain my peace and just enjoy. I do meditation every day. That's a non-negotiable in the morning. I just incorporated a few things that I really need to do to reset because when I was running nonstop, for what? Because when I'm burnt out, it doesn't help anybody. And the key is to be the best me, to get my job done and just live, you know? And I also pray every day that I make my purpose God's purpose in what I do. So not necessarily doing everything just because I can, but really finding what I'm aligned with and centering myself with that. So I know that it makes sense and it's intentional. So especially in the last year, I've really tried to be more intentional with my thoughts, my words, figuring out what I want to do, and just prioritizing that and truly just praying on it.
Mariama, how do you stay balanced?
That's a good answer. Thank you, Alexandra. I would say mine's a little similar to hers. So what I usually do is I try to incorporate my passions within my profession in order to live up to my purpose. So I kind of try to mesh everything together so it's more aligned and it flows properly. And one example I can give is for my Knowledge and Health Improvement Package project, otherwise known as KIT, which is pretty much a project that's focused on my passions and my purpose as well as my profession. So it is a pediatric community health initiative that's pretty much focused on health and wellness mentorship for underprivileged children in order to enhance their well-beings when it comes to nutrition, physical activity, as well as areas of improvement that they may need towards their education. Education is really important to me because without education, I wouldn't be where I am today. In addition to physical health, wellness, and nutrition wellness, I took a wellness journey last year in 2019, where I did things such as intermittent fasting. I did research on various right foods I'm supposed to eat in order to keep myself healthy, participating in marathons and exercising every day, and I lost over 50 pounds. So that's really important to me when it comes to my passions, just physical wellness, mental wellness, in addition to also creativity. I incorporate a lot of creativity with this project as well by creating, I should say, these various wellness guides for the children, the underprivileged children, in order for them to enhance their well-being. So this project I was supposed to launch back in June of this year, but due to COVID, I unfortunately wasn't able to go. But I'm using this time that I'm not traveling in order to enhance the project and to have it yield more of an impact for these underprivileged children. I do like helping underprivileged communities as well as marginalized communities. So this is important to me. And and in terms of just putting everything together, just pretty much incorporating my passions and into my profession in order to live up to my purpose. And I think that's really important with everyone in life. A lot of people struggle in terms of doing that when it comes to balancing their work life and their school lives, and some people have kids and some people have other obligations. But I think if you're able to actually incorporate your passions into your professions in order to live up to your purpose, it's more easier to live up to your purpose. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm still trying to figure out what my purpose is. When I first started off, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Creativity was something that I have at the heart. Like, I have been a fan of creativity and the art field since I was a kid, and that's the field I wanted to get into. But since that field isn't as substantial as other fields out there, I had to choose something else. And with healthcare, there's so many avenues you can take. And I think if you know how to be creative and you know how to be smart with it, you're able to incorporate your passions into like your actual profession. So it's just a matter of critical thinking, and it's a matter of being creative. So I would say for me, just in summary, for me, I incorporate my passions into my profession in order to live up to my purpose. And I'm still trying to figure that out day by day.
I think that you both gave me answers to questions that I personally have been seeking, and you've also reiterated some things that I have been saying for the past, I want to say 2-3 months. I even said it on a phone call today. Alexandra, you have to appreciate the journey and the process and the progress as opposed to the final destination. Our generation in particular, we're like, oh, this is end goal. This is end goal. And I'm like, you cannot go from point A to point C without going through point B. And who knows, point B might just be where you need to stay. And then with Mariama, I think that incorporating your passions into your profession and then living up to your purpose in a triangle effect, I think that is probably the best way, because if not, you're going to be juggling so many different pieces and you might drop the ball, and we don't want to drop the ball. So talking about juggling and talking about what needs to be done, what do you consider to be one of the most valuable skills in your line of work? We're going to start with Alexandra. Oh no, it's Mariama, it's you. You're right, it's you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Alexandra.
You're good.
No, girl.
I would say the most important skill you should have in the health IT field, versatility. Hands down, you have to have versatility in regards to the clinical aspect of healthcare and in regards to the IT side of healthcare, because health information technology is combining two fields, the field of healthcare as well as the field of IT. So you have to be versatile in both areas. And I still kind of struggle with the whole clinical aspect, because most of my background and my skill set is more so focused on administration and IT and innovation and things like that. So I have to take it upon myself to learn all there's to know about the clinical side of healthcare. So I'm, talking with doctors, I'm talking with nurses, nurse practitioners, medical assistants, and things like that. And I'm doing research on my own. Just a simple Google search can lead you to so many resources in regards to learning the various clinical aspects of healthcare. So you have to have versatility. In regards to some of the skills that, the second part of the question, which is what I believe was other skills that are involved in the field, I would say project management. So you have to know how to meet various deadlines in regards to training deadlines, project build deadlines, showing demos, presentation deadlines, in addition to validation deadlines. You have to be able to meet certain deadlines. And if you aren't able to meet certain deadlines, then you're basically in trouble. So you have to make sure that you meet certain deadlines and when they're supposed to be due for various different assignments. You also have to have that willingness to learn. This isn't a field where various information will just come to you. You can just sit at your desk and just wait for information to come to you. No, like you have to actually apply yourself in having that willingness to learn when it comes to troubleshooting issues, building various applications, incorporating various enhancements in various applications and things like that. Also, having strong presentation skills. I used to struggle with public speaking my entire life up until college, but I had to practice and practice and practice on my own, like speaking to myself in my room when I had a big presentation, because you have to be comfortable with presenting in all different avenues. So you have to be comfortable with presenting in front of small groups. You have to be comfortable with presenting in front of large groups. For our Maryland primary care program that's recently just launched at LifeBridge, I had to train various clinical classes, which incorporated 25 plus people. So I had to learn how to become acquainted with that. I'm also doing presentations that can last from 5-10 minutes to doing presentations that can last an hour. I had to do a presentation May of last year, a value-based care presentation, which pretty much focuses on the importance of health IT, care coordination, and healthcare. And that presentation lasted an entire hour for my entire team. So you have to be comfortable when it comes to doing presentations. And sometimes you may be asked to do presentations on the spot in front of directors, in front of CIOs, CEOs, nurse leaders, doctors, and things like that. You will be asked to do that on the spot. So you have to be able to be very quick-witted with it when it comes to presenting various application demos. I would say other skills, I mentioned project management, presentation skills, having that willingness to learn, and versatility. And also detail orientation. So when it comes to validating and building various applications, you have to be very detail oriented, and you have to be very meticulous when it comes to building these applications. So you can do everything right, and if you miss like one small simple step, like you forgot to check off something on the back end, that can lead to issues. And if it goes live and another a person on the clinical side is using it and they have an issue and they're working with a patient, you're gonna end up into some deep trouble. So you have to be able to be very attentive and very meticulous when it comes to building these various applications. And one last skill you should have in terms of working in this field is having skills when it comes to technology specifically. So programming languages, R programming languages, in addition to SQL programming languages, and Cerner. If you're familiar, if your hospital organization is using Cerner applications, being familiar with CCL programming languages. Also, when it comes to learning various codes, CPT codes, SNOMED codes, ICD-10 codes, you have to be familiar with that type of terminology as well. So, and also executing queries to pull out data reports, you have to be very skilled when it comes to that as well. So it's, like I said, versatility is key to this field. You have to be versatile in the clinical side as well as the IT side. So that's pretty much the skills you should have and comes up in terms of working in this field.
Alexandra, what do you consider to be the most important skill to have in your profession, and then a couple of other skills that you think are equally valuable?
Mariama, thanks for touching upon so many great skills. They definitely are transferable to nursing as well. All of them, really. One of the great skills that I find the most important in what I do is critical thinking. Often it's easy to follow orders that the doctors, respiratory therapists, occupational therapists, pharmacists, that they just write, but you have to question it and think 4, 5, 10 steps ahead and say, okay, is this right for the patient? Should they be getting this dosage? Is this what I should be doing? Should I get it later? Because it's easy, and we've been taught, follow the rules, follow the book, and then execute it. You can't do that when you're dealing with someone's life. You have to make sure and triple check that everything that is set out for them is correct. So critical thinking is key. I know that was one of the hardest things for me to really master and understand in nursing school. When I was in that transition from nursing 1 to nursing 2 and 3, we had to begin knowing the why more. And that was hard because in college, I was able to memorize, get great grades, and then live my best life. In nursing school, I memorized, did not get the best grades initially. And I'm like, okay, well, best life on hold. So I really had to sit back and say, why am I not catching on to these concepts? And it was because I wasn't thinking of the why and thinking of those 10 steps ahead. So if I'm giving this medication, it's going to be impacting the kidney. So therefore, I need to look to make sure that my patient is able to go to the bathroom. Like certain things impact everything, and you have to think about the end line of how it's going to affect the patient. So critical thinking is key. You cannot just follow orders and hope the other person knows what they're doing, because maybe they just had an off day and they typed a 5 instead of an 8. That will affect the patient, even if it was a mistake. So I need to look at those numbers, look at the medication, see what's going on, and truly understand, okay, is this right for my patient, right for the situation that I'm dealing with? And if not, how do I fix it to help make things better? A few other skills that I found important is flexibility. When I first started as a nurse, I was in, like I said, observation, telemetry, med-surg unit, taking care of a diverse amount of patients. And as I got more and more into my career, we then were going to the ER, taking care of patients too. So I'm glad I would have transferable skills and be able to take care of emergency room patients. But some days you want to stick to what you know and stick to your home unit. So that flexibility piece was key, because I needed to put in my mind that although the day is not going to work out how I necessarily anticipate, I need to be prepared for what is thrown at me. If my boss needs me to take care of the patient on the opposite side of the hallway than the one that I've been taking care of on my section, I need to figure out how I can adapt, change, be flexible, and execute the task correctly. That's key. Also, confidence. Initially, when you're a new nurse speaking to doctors, you can be hesitant. Do I know this? Am I saying the right things? But we've studied hard, we've passed boards, we've been working at what we do, and you have to be confident, not only to show the doctors that you know what you're doing, but to know that you could be a good advocate for your patients. So confidence has been key for me, and it's something that I'm building every day, because it just doesn't come to you. Confidence comes with learning more, reading on my off days, looking at articles about cath lab. I'm on cath lab digest now every day, looking to see what other people in other hospitals are doing. And that's increasing my confidence. It's not just learning how to speak. It's really figuring out, how can I make this situation more knowledgeable for me? How can I learn from it and build my confidence from it? And that's been super helpful in what I do, because when I know more, then I'm able to know what I'm saying to other people. And similar to what Mariama was saying, public speaking is key, because you need to be able to express yourself when you are dealing in critical situations. Because when patients are crashing on me, I need to be able to effectively say, I need you to do this, this, and that, and somebody else to take on other roles. So public speaking has been key to make sure that I'm understood effectively and that we are moving efficiently when taking care of patients every day.
Wonderful. You all perfectly segued into our next question. So being able to effectively communicate, being able to express yourself, being able to use that public speaking confidence is something that I think is important, not only in your line of work, but especially during this pandemic. So how can you parallel communication and the impact that it's had during this pandemic? So Alexandra, we're going to start with you.
I think it's key that everybody is on the same page. Initially, when the pandemic started, some people were saying A, some people were saying B, and it takes away from the end goal of what's supposed to be done. So in terms of how the public speaking confidence and everything is incorporated into it, we have to make sure that at the end of the day, especially in a hospital organization, we're all working collaboratively as a team. And with COVID, I feel like the team effort across the board, not just among healthcare, but across the whole nation, was totally off, because we're hearing different things from different people. So it's key that we were on the same page, and I've seen it change now, where people are, like, throughout the whole hospital, we're all wearing the same thing, have the same mask. It helps that now we have protective equipment available. That was another thing, because when you're working with lack of resources, at that point, everyone's just trying to survive. So it's key to figure out, as an organization, as a unit, as a nurse, what is the end goal of the situation, what's actually going on, and how is this impacting me in a way that everybody can be on the same page and like have a team effort. So a key thing for us, whether it was COVID or not, is having like debriefing sessions after something happens throughout a shift, or debriefing session just in general. And I think that helps everybody get on the same page, because it's hard to be on the same page if everybody thinks that a certain situation had different impacts. So if someone thought that the blue should have been brighter, that the pens weren't working, and that was the only thing they're focused on, they're not hearing everybody else's opinion. So with those debriefing sessions, it allows everybody to kind of say what's going on, how things can be done more effectively. And we saw that throughout the middle of the pandemic. It was so beautiful to see nurses and everyone collaborating across the country, like, hey, I'm in the ICU, and instead of having the pumps on the inside of the room, let's have it on the outside of the room so we don't have to keep going inside and putting up gear and everything like that. So simple things like that. That communication piece is key, because COVID was something that's new to all of us. But when we approach it from a teamwork standpoint, great minds all together can allow us to be better at dealing with what we have to, and figure out how can we make the situation work for us where we're not just scrambling and trying to survive. So now I've really seen the hospital shift from just surviving to really thriving and figuring out how we can make sure everybody is safe throughout the next go around, and make sure that we're not just scrambling and figuring out what to do at the last minute.
Mariama?
Yeah, very good answer, Alexandra. I would say my answer has some similarities to what you were saying. So definitely debriefing sessions, being on the same page, very crucial when it comes to working in healthcare, and specifically in health IT, because even when it comes to emails, you could read an email and interpret it in so many ways. So it's important to have like debriefing sessions. And luckily with IT, we're able to have debriefing sessions when it comes to remote applications such as WebEx, Windstream, in addition to Office Suite, Zoom, in addition to Microsoft Teams. So we're able to use various applications at hand to communicate with one another and make sure we're all on the same page. In my previous job at LifeBridge, we had department huddles every Monday. We had team huddles every morning, and we have also quarterly meetings every quarter of the year. And with the pandemic, we had quarterly meetings online. So that was a really interesting transition. Also with my new role, when it came to onboarding orientation, I literally had to have that orientation online. It was just me in a computer lab by myself, going through these various modules and watching these webinars and these videos. And it wasn't as interactive as previous orientations, where I'm meeting various staff from various clinical disciplines and various departments in the hospital, and I'm able to network with them and kind of know their backgrounds and what they do and their schooling and things like that. And it wasn't as interactive as this particular orientation for this new role that I have. It wasn't as interactive as the orientations that I had in the past. So that was something that was really different for me in terms of the field that I work in regards to this pandemic. Also, when it came to our Maryland primary care program training that I had to conduct, I usually conduct these trainings in person. So we schedule a room in the computer lab at the hospital, and we conduct these trainings where everyone has a computer at hand and they're able to follow along with what I'm doing and what I'm instructing them to do. But with the pandemic and with working remotely, I literally had to do these trainings online. So I had to know how these applications work. I had to know how Microsoft Teams work, how Windstream works, how WebEx works, because if not, it looks bad on me. So when it comes to in the middle of this pandemic, you, again, like what Alex said, just making sure you're on the same page and making sure you're prepared. If you're having issues when it comes to knowing how to like maneuver these applications, these remote applications, when it comes to conducting meetings, you have to make sure you're doing it way ahead of time, so you can kind of go through the testing and go through the various fixes when it comes to communicating with your team, especially if you're doing a big presentation in front of so many people, let alone one person. So I would say communication hasn't really changed to a drastic effect in health IT, because we're so used to communicating through email and IM and other remote conferencing sessions and applications. But as far as from an orientation perspective and from a training perspective, just having to do these types of things online, there's some challenges that exist to it. But I think in terms of what Alexandra said, just pretty much working through it and practicing and kind of like doing it more and more until it flows properly. That's the key when it comes to communication, and just ensuring that everyone's on the same page, because this is a time where everyone has to be on the same page. So yeah, that's I say that's really important when it comes to communication.
Being on the same page is crucial. It's like you both emphasized and like you both shared, being able to clearly have a message or an idea and communicate from the person that's transmitting the message to the person that's receiving the message. When you read an email, it may be intended one way, but it may be received another way. So having the opportunity to just sit down, to debrief, to communicate, and to understand the next plan of action, I think is very important. So we're gonna go into our last two questions. The first of those two is, what is a tip or suggestion you would give to someone that wants to start practicing self-care? And we're gonna start with Ms. Mariama.
Practicing it's so hard for me to find time to practice self-care because I'm always so busy and working, but I would say kind of like what Alexandra said. I like what she said, like meditation in the morning, and it's non-negotiable. That is so important. So I recently started doing meditations in the morning, especially now with COVID existing, and like everything is so unknown. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to contract this virus. I don't know, like it makes you easily so stressed out. So just participating in doing meditation exercises. I also do exercising in the morning as well, and I take my vitamins, and I make sure I do those 3 things before I start off my workday. Like I have to get those 3 things done before starting my workday. So pretty much I'm taking the initiative to do those things in order to before fulfilling various obligations. I also usually do lots of reading, lots of journaling as well. In addition to drawing is my thing to deal with self-care. Everyone kind of has their own thing. So you kind of have to find like what it is that makes you reset and have that peace of mind. Mine is drawing, so I usually take the time to do that. And when I do it, I have my oil diffuser on, like my room is clean, I'm listening to peaceful indie music. So I make sure I do those things because it keeps me at peace. And I know, like, I've always struggled with anxiety, like my entire life, just always being like, you got deadlines, you got this going on, you have family issues going on, you have life issues going on. I forgot to pay this bill, like my electricity is going to be cut off, like things like that, like life things. And you have to make sure that you do things in order to keep your mind at ease. Also for me, paying attention to what I consume. There are certain foods that you can consume that make you very sluggish, and there's some foods you can consume that can give you energy. I'm very big when it comes to drinking hot lemon water, because not only does it detoxify everything in my system and it keeps me at peace, but it also gives me the energy that I need to do in order to fulfill what I have to do at work. So just participating in various nutrition regimens, and then also exercising as well. Like those are the 2 main important things: nutrition and exercise, and also other things relating to the arts and meditation in the mornings and taking my vitamins. Those are the various things that I do when it comes to self-care.
My self-care has evolved, especially over the last year. When I first started talking about self-care, it was coming from a nursing perspective, a nursing student perspective, just finished nursing school, excited, but was overwhelmed with all the exams and tests. Now that nursing school is over and I'm working every day, I had to figure out how to maintain the balance between working, not bringing it home, and still enjoying life. Mm-hmm. So what helps me initially, it was running. I love exercising. I ran track in high school. Running, meditating, and having positive affirmations to say. My first meditation was like super forced. I was trying to sit there, not say anything, be like a statue. And I realized it wasn't like intentional and authentic. So I had to dig deep and figure out what worked for me. Luckily, over the past, back in March, I found a program. It's called Ziva Online Meditation by Emily Fletcher. She offered it free for healthcare professionals. I was able to do her program for 14 weeks. And it's allowed me to set that time to say my meditation is non-negotiable in the mornings at this time and in the evenings at this time. And really making my self-care where certain things are non-negotiable has helped. I've also learned not to necessarily cater to everyone's feelings and phone calls. Like I can't answer every phone call. I can't be there for everybody in every way all the time. So figuring out my limits, how to set that, and then move forward with what I need to do. Also, incorporating a therapist has helped tremendously. My therapist, I found her on Therapy for Black Girls, which I love. All you have to do is type in your zip code, and then it links you to all the therapists in your area, which I really like. Unfortunately, with therapy, it's really hard to get certain people, especially the ones that you want, covered by insurance. So for some, I've had to pay out of pocket. For some, my insurance pays for, but it's been a good investment. So even though it's expensive, I like that I was able to incorporate it for a time period and figure out how it works. So you don't necessarily need therapy every week, every day. It's tailored to the individual person. You start working with your therapist to figure out what you want to talk about. But I think that's been helpful because it's nice to get an outside ear off of different situations that I'm dealing with, because it's a person who's not invested in your life and you can kind of be transparent with them. When I was going through different changes in my life, it's like I wanted to not stress out other people. So I was like, oh, you know, everything's okay, it's fine, this and that. But with my therapist, I was able to say, girl, guess what happened? And she's able to really be there for me and give me non-biased advice. So I like that. And also, initially when I was getting to self-care, I was like, okay, let me do Pilates, let me run, let me jump. And I realized I needed at some point to actually sit still. So self-care is also resting. Like I needed to rest. Running all the time was kind of my way to distract myself from things that were going on that I needed to resolve. So once I took that time over the last few months, especially during the pandemic when you can't do anything, I was able to sit with myself and address the things that Alexandra isn't too fond of. So I like that with self-care, I've been able to realize it's not always about doing something. You can sit there with yourself and figure out, okay, what's going on? How am I feeling? And knowing that your feelings are valid. Sometimes I really dislike when people say like, oh, but you don't have it as bad as so-and-so. Whatever you're going through in that moment is valid. So learning that only from my therapist with different podcasts, Sheila Marie, Ace Hood's wife, her affirmations and her meditation audiobook on Spotify, it's been great because you can sit in your feelings. Sometimes when you are angry, it's like we've been taught to push it away, like, don't be mad. It's okay. Everything will be good. Let's have a positive outlook. Whereas it's okay for you to be upset. You figure out why you're upset, what's triggering these feelings, and what's making me uncomfortable, and how can I move forward from this? So I think learning truly not suppressing my feelings and being open with whatever is going on at the time has really helped my self-care, and it's changed it from more of the superficial self-care that I initially was doing when I first started learning to now. But I must say that one of the biggest things is to just start. Initially with self-care, I'm like, all right, I need to be this perfect meditator. I need to find the best therapist. I need to make my diet great. I need to make sure I do my skincare regimen every day. Like that's a lot. So I've learned to just do one thing at a time. And once you do that, you're like, wow, I'm making progress. Instead of running like 10 miles, maybe walking down the block is just a great thing. Maybe it's finding a therapist is like dating. It's hard to find people who you relate to. So instead of saying, okay, I'm gonna find a therapist by Friday, like be open to find other people or even look up about therapy or figure out, hey, does this work for me? Just taking slow steps into it and not putting too much pressure on yourself to be this perfect person that you want to be later. I think I was really focused on being this perfect Alexandra. And I realized that's not tangible. That's not going to happen. I'm who I am in the moment, and that's who I can be to help others and be the best person that I want to be. So my self-care has definitely changed over the time. And I think the biggest thing is to just be comfortable in where you are and do little changes. It's the small steps that seem like small steps that really will take you to where you want to be, because each little step will take you much farther than taking a big leap ahead and then having to go back like 10 feet because you rushed too fast. So when I initially was running, I said, okay, I'm gonna do 5 miles today. And then the next day I'm exhausted and my legs hurt and I can only do not even a 2-minute walk. So not overexerting yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and really being understanding and giving yourself grace for wherever you are at that time. Like it's okay wherever you are. You're meant to be in that place. You'll learn from it and you'll grow from it. And the feelings that you get aren't going to be with you all the time. One thing that I found that I was listening to on my Ziva meditation, a therapist had said that uncomfortable feelings usually only last for 90 seconds. So in those 90 seconds that are happening, a lot of people try to push it away, say, what can I do to make it go away? Let me eat, let me ignore it, let me run, let me jump. When sometimes you just have to sit there, feel it, address it, and then not that it goes away, that the problem goes away, but it's like, okay, I understand where this is coming from. Now I can move forward. So knowing that being uncomfortable is also, growing and giving yourself grace for that growth period, because you're going to shine and be great regardless. Maybe this situation is just a stepping stone.
That you both have given so much that I personally will write down in my notebook, because I'm a big emphasizer of practice self-care. And then people are like, do you practice self-care? And I'm like, that's a good question. But I know that I have taken a little bit more than your time. And before you leave us, can you just give us one tip or trick or advice for someone that is interested in entering your profession in your field of work? We'll start with you, Alexandra.
One tip. Okay, anyone who wants to be a nurse, I would say, like I said before, give yourself grace. It's going to be a new field. You're going to be learning a lot at one time. You're going to be exposed to different people, different personalities, different procedures. And although you've learned it in a textbook, applying it in real life is way different. So learn to not be upset with yourself if you don't get it the first time. And if you don't get it the first time, figuring out why and asking people for help. There's no problem with asking people for help. That's what has gotten me, I think, far along the way, because I'm not afraid to say, hey, I don't know it. Can you explain it again? Because I'm not putting a patient's life at risk so I can look good to pretend I know it. And always practicing self-care, because as nurses, we get burnt out and feel like we have to just keep going on that never-ending wheel because we're trying to help other people. So a key for that, I talk about it in my blog. So check out Hey Amazing, my blog. I talk about self-care and the different situations that I went through where I had to step back and say, okay, I need to pause, put myself first, figure out where I want to be. As women, Black women, sometimes in different spaces, no matter what profession, you can get imposter syndrome and say, am I supposed to be here? Am I doing well? Are my skills warranted? Am I up to par? And really being confident in who you are and saying, all right, I'm here for a purpose. I always have, I'm kind, I'm smart, I'm important. And whatever I need to say throughout the day to get me through, to know it will be okay. Because as a nurse, you're a lifelong learner. You're never going to know everything, and you're never going to be perfect at what you do. You just aren't. Every patient's different. Every body is different. So really being humble, giving yourself grace, knowing that you are going to be a lifelong learner, and always having those affirmations in your head when times get hard to say to yourself. When I'm in the middle of a procedure and the doctor's asking me for something, I'm like, oh gosh, where is it? I'm like, okay, Alexandra, you got this. Just walk over there. You're going to get it. You're going to bring it to him. The day's going to be okay. So I really talk to myself in my head, and I try to hype myself up no matter what I do. So as a nurse, there's going to be other colleagues, professors trying to say, are you sure about that? You sure you want to finish nursing? Do you think you could be a good nurse? All the time throughout nursing school, my peers and I would have our teachers say, I don't know about that. So having that confidence within you to say, I'm going to be great regardless. I'm kind, I'm smart, I'm important, and I'm going to give myself grace to shine.
Thank you so much for that, Alexandra. Mariama, what would you say to someone that wants to go into health, information, and technology?
There's so many things I want to say, but I'll try to make it brief because I know we're already over the hour. And what Alex said, there's some similars and parallels to what I have to say. I would say the most important one is get your foot in the door as soon as possible. I cannot stress that enough. Like, a lot of jobs, they're looking for the educational expertise. Like, it's nice that you have a bachelor's. It's nice that you have an associate's. It's nice that you even have a master's, but you have to have that work experience as well. I cannot stress that enough. So even if it's like volunteering at a continuing care retirement community, or volunteering at a clinic, or volunteering at a hospital, being an intern, I know sometimes people complain about volunteerships and internships and you're not being paid, but sometimes it's good to be paid in experience. And not so much focused on like the money. Money is important, but experience is also really important too, especially when it comes to applying for jobs. So get your foot in the door as soon as possible. And also kind of like what Alexandra said, being patient with yourself. I have been rejected from many jobs more times than I've been accepted. So you have to be patient with yourself when it comes to this application and this job opportunity process, because it takes a lot of grit and it takes a lot of patience, and you're going to get a lot of no's before you start getting the yeses. So you have to be really patient with yourself. Also, know what your end goal is and try to work backwards in terms of achieving it. So my next goal in terms of my career is getting an MD/MPH track. Mm-hmm. So I want to become a doctor and also get my master's in public health, because I eventually want to work in community outreach services. I want to work with health education. I want to work with public policy recommendations. So in terms of working backwards, and I also want to have my own practice. So in having my own practice, I'll be able to help with marginalized population groups in order to provide pediatric care and family internal medicine care. So in terms of working backwards in regards to fulfilling that, I have my associates in business administration, so I can check that off. I also have my bachelor's degree in healthcare management. I can check that off. And I also have my master's in health IT, which is very important when it comes to working with various applications under healthcare. So I can check that off. And right now, I just have to get that clinical experience, because like I said before, versatility is very important when it comes to this field. So my next step is to become more clinical, to learn that clinical side of healthcare, and eventually have my own practice, because with having my own practice, I don't want to continue working for someone my whole life. I want to eventually do my own thing, have my own project, say that something is actually mine. So in having that, I'll be able to be more self-sufficient as an individual. So I would say just getting your foot in the door as soon as possible. Also, you never know who you're going to work with when you further advance in your career. So be nice and kind and have healthy relationships with everybody. Like, I know life is hard, especially right now. And I know that sometimes it can be really difficult working with people. Some people have different mindsets. People come from different backgrounds. People have different personalities. Some people are more patient. Other people are more reserved. Some people are more outgoing. Some people are a little more strict when it comes to like their feelings and emotions, and that's okay. But you have to have healthy relationships with people, because you never know who you're going to run into as you get further along in your career. For me personally, when I had my internship at Mosaic Community Services back at Timonium, Maryland, I worked with the senior analyst, and then I ended up working with her again at LifeBridge at the IT department. Also, the health information management director at Holy Cross Hospital was the same HIM director who I was serving to as an executive assistant. So just, you never know who you're going to run into as you get further along in your career. So it's always best to have respectful relationships with everybody, because you never know like what life has in store as you get further down the line. And those are pretty much the pieces of advice I can give to anyone who's trying to get into this health IT field.
All right. Well, ladies, you all said so much today that I think our viewers and our listeners are going to marinate on, reflect on, and there are things that resonated with all of them and also resonated with me. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your storytelling session. And I want to thank our everyone that tuned in. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday evening with us. And with that, we have concluded our Health and Healthcare Saturday Spotlight. Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you very much, Mariama. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.